Hey, it's Lori Branch asking who created house music?
Today.
My name is Rob Alon, and I am moderating the future of house music in AI technology.
Ooh, that's a good panel. So here's our life or death question.
Sure.
Who created house music?
Who created house music? The short answer is, I think for me, I'm going to definitely say that Chicago is the genesis of house music, but I think it's an amalgamation of gay, brown, black, disenfranchised youth without not a lot of access and not a lot of money.
Okay, and do you think it matters that we ask this question?
Yeah, I definitely think it's imperative that the question be asked and that the answers be documented.
Got it. What year would you say that house music began?
Well, I was DJing in my sophomore year for sure, so, and I don't know that the term was there then, but it was certainly being born, because I think that one of the things that happens is that when we create something, I don't think that we always name it. I think that we're busy participating, and we're busy channeling whatever energy that we have. But I would say that it was certainly between the years of probably I would say 80 to 82. I think that the genesis of it, or the crystallization of house music, occurred after disco, and because here in Chicago we were trying to figure it all out. I don't think that there was a group of kids that were more open to more forms of dance music than the kids here in Chicago. I think that while we were trying to figure out what that sound would be, we were listening to a lot of different music.
Okay. Well, Ron, thank you so much for answering our critical questions about the history of house music, and have a good panel.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Robert Owens, he's our keynote speaker for today. He's a Chicagoan, he's a house music legend, as a vocalist, as a DJ, as a performer, and we are so blessed to have him and his history here with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm very grateful to be here.
So you're going to have easier questions in your panel. But here are the key tough questions.
Okay.
Who created house music?
Who created house music?
Was it you? Was it Robert Owens?
No, well, I mean, it stems from me, from the warehouse.
Right.
Music box, Ron Hardy, but you look back and you look at things that Georgia Moroder played, Donna Summers, and these type of tracks. Mm-hmm. It was syncopated rhythms and stuff, so that was a form of house music for me. And I tell a lot of people I come out of the disco era, before house even evolved. Up north, the Flamingos, Coconuts, these kind of clubs, I was there catering to those clubs, and also the Den One, which I think I mentioned to you all before Ron Hardy went to California playing at the Catch One. He was back in America at the Den One. Mm-hmm. And so I went there and I rented out that club before it officially closed off, and I hired Ron to come and play at that club.
Where are the pluggers for that? We need that. We need those pluggers. Where they at?
And it's somebody here in Chicago know that I did that, because it was a lot of kids that came out from that whole music box period and sang, which I moved to England, a little bit after that, so I kind of lost touch with everyone, and then he passed away and stuff. But still, off and on, I'll see Robert Williams here and there when I come here and stuff. I always try to get in touch.
He's here.
Yeah, they said earlier they know that I was coming, and we still get our little hugs in and everything.
We're all looking forward to it.
But he was kind of an inspiration in pushing me towards, pushing myself out, as far as DJing and being an artist and performer, and let me play in the music box, before and stuff. But I always did things on the circuit, coming up again around that Den. I used to go in there with false ID It's about 18, so this is where I come out of the disco era. I tell people opposed to the house scene. And then, going to those clubs on Music Box and the Warehouse and stuff, and getting to know Frankie and Ron and everybody. We got inspired from what they were playing, and sampling these loop patterns of the disco edits and stuff. They would take sometimes the highlight of a track, and then they loop that over and over. That inspired a lot of these kids to go on and do the things. Farley and all of them, Jam Silk, their first tracks that Love Can't Turn Around is Isaac Hayes' I Can't Turn Around. Ron Hardy and Frankie and them were playing those kind of tracks and making those things popular. Right. So they got the inspiration from that and doing their own tracks and stuff in their basements and stuff. We used to house hop around in each other's house. Some of them might be at my house, the K. Alexis, the Gene Hunts, all of them. And then they'd pop over to Ron's house, Frankie's house. What is he doing? What are they doing? So I just was never like the one that was always talking, but I was there and doing my own little edits and stuff and giving them to Frankie and Ron and them. But I think they kind of inspired the kids to go into that realm of creating and buying those drum machines and things in the early stages of playing those simplistic kind of formats against those big orchestral formats, the salsa prelude and so on. And so it was a variation from the kids doing their stuff in basements, because most of them lived with their parents and we were down in the basement creating our version of house music. Then it stems from other kids saying, well, we went to the Warehouse, which is short as house, and that's where you play this house music. Frankie said that some of the kids said that to him, so I'd say it's a combination between the two situations, maybe.
And Josana, tell me your full name and what panel you're on.
Full name Josana Satola. I'm on my piano panel. Basically talking about South Africa's connection with house music in America. I'll be moderating that panel.
Yay!
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And so I'm so happy you said your last name. I've never really heard you say it. Say it again.
Satola.
Satola.
Yeah. In Zulu, E is always pronounced as.
Okay. Satola.
Yeah, Satola.
And what country does that derived from?
I'm from South Africa.
From South Africa.
110% Zulu.
Fantastic. Okay, so here is our first question. Who created house music? Josana.
House music is from Chicago. This is the birthplace. Everybody knows that. That's not up for debate. Of course, it's influenced by New York and Jersey and the disco era. But as far as house music being created, this is the birthplace. I don't think there's any question. Anybody who believes they're different places of origin, then they're really not doing their research.
But can we say a specific person created it? Do you have names of people who might have created the music, or what do you think about that?
I think it's a collective. It was, the name itself, of course, comes from the Warehouse, but it's a collective. It was, you can't really, it's like a slang term. You can't really find the nexus of a slang term. It grows from the group, And
that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like some of these words, like where'd it come from?
Because literally, it was a slang term.
It
was a term, a slang term to indicate what the type of music that was played at the Warehouse. It was disco, it was Philly International, it was all types of different music. It was just basically a term to indicate that these were songs, this was music that was played at the Warehouse.
So do you think it matters that we ask these questions about how this music derived?
Absolutely. Not only asked, but documented in every form. Whether it's, because if you don't, people later on will add their own idea of how, it has nothing to do with house music, but I went to school in Atlanta. I was at Freaknik, the first couple of Freakniks, and it was common knowledge that was a DC thing. It was a DC, it started as a DC picnic. And now online I can hear And it was common knowledge. It wasn't something you had to research. Everybody knew it was in DC. It was all the DC people in Atlanta that started that. But now 35 years later, I hear people saying it started in Atlanta, it started from Atlanta people, it started from Miami people. You know, but if stuff is not documented, everybody can come up with their own narrative.
That's true.
Right. So
but you need these documents.
You
It's so
need
important.
documentation, absolutely.
So our last question is, give me some years or a year in which you believe house music began.
I would say mid-'80s.
So mid-'80s.
Mid-'80s, maybe 85, 80, 84, 85, 86.
Okay.
Pretty much that's when it became a term. I mean, the creators of that music, the people who were, that was at a time when I was in high school. And house music became like every other genre, it became mass popular with my generation. You know, with most music forms, they become popular with the teenagers. The creators of the music are usually in their 20s, and it's not mass popular with them. It's usually exclusive. It's only the cool people know it, you know? And that's the same with house, the same with R&B, the same with jazz, the same with hip hop. The creators of the music, it's never mass popular with them. It's only the cool people, it becomes mass popular with the teenagers, which was my generation.
What high school did you go to?
Whitney Young.
I didn't know you went to Whitney Young.
Absolutely.
It's too bad that you didn't go to the best high school in the history of the world.
Please don't say Kim.
Please, I'm not going to say Kim. I'm going to say Lynn Bloom Technical High School. Y'all Whitney Young people. I tell you, refuse to give us the respect. Anyway, Josiah, thank you so much.
No problem.
And enjoy your panel today.
I sure will.
Thanks. Talk to me about who created house music. Do you have any idea?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I mean, house music was created by, I think, ultimately a lot of people. There was a lot of different people around, specifically in Chicago, that were working, maybe didn't know it at the time, but they were really working to create a new sound. But, so much of it was popularized and spread first, initially by queer, black, and brown people in a lot of clubs. But I mean, it spread beyond that, and it became so much more of a widespread community. But I think, ultimately, that's kind of where the sound started with and grew from. And so much credit is given to Frankie Knuckles as kind of the creator of house music, and as a black gay man. I think a lot of that credit lies there with him in the community.
Very good. Do you think it matters?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So we just got the warehouse landmarked this week. Yeah, so it's landmarked officially as of Wednesday. And a lot of the big part of that storytelling and that narrative is that this was created. House music was created in the warehouse. By and large, and that space really wouldn't exist as powerfully and as potently as it does, if not for the fact that this was a safe space for a lot of queer, black, and brown people. There's a real power, I think, in the idea that this was a community that was marginalized and forced into underground spaces for safety. And out of that resistance, they, are resilient, and they create something that has a worldwide, global, appeal, and it becomes a phenomenon, and it's still here with us today. So yeah, it absolutely does matter. It's part of the genesis of the entire sound.
Very good. One other key critical question. So if you think about hip hop celebrating 50 years this year, there's a solid date. It's a solid space that they, they suggest is important to its creation, its founding. Give me the years that you believe that house music began.
Well, I think when people point to the warehouse as being sort of the birthplace, the nightclub opened up in 1977. It was open for 5 years. It closed in 1982. As it is with so many different things, like any sort of music, it's tough to really put a pin in it, right? These are, especially when it comes to house music was this combination of funk, of hip hop, well, not hip hop yet, but I mean later years, disco and soul and gospel, all those different things, all kind of coalesced. So I don't know if there's one particular era. Late 1970s is when the whole thing starts to gel together and become a sound. But there's building blocks that kind of built up slowly. And house, I think, as it's spread, it's become. There's so many different ways that it's been interpreted, especially when it gets to other nations. It becomes a different sound entirely. So you want to start talking about French house or house in South Africa. All those different sounds have their own entirely, completely different points of origin too. So
that's true.
Yeah.
Mr. Chavez, thank you so much
Thank you.
for answering our critical questions, life or death questions.
I felt the pressure.
Thank you. I have a very important question for you. Who created house music?
I wouldn't want to put any one person as the creator. I would say there were a lot of influences, and certainly the DJs of the early 80s, in particular Frankie Knuckles and Ron Hardy, who had black gay club spaces where music morphed from disco into European electronic music, and all these different influences came together and inspired a lot of producers, gay and straight, all over Chicago to create their drum beats, and I feel like that is really where it started.
Do you think it has?
That's a really good question, because I feel like so much attention is placed on what's the first record, what's the person who gets credit, but really it's the whole community that should be embraced, and it's like, why are we trying to pigeonhole it or questioning that it was Chicago kids that came up with this?
Okay, so when you think about, here's the deal, when you think about the hip hop turning 50 years old, there's a start date,
Yeah.
there's an end date. What's the start of house music?
That's a good question. I would say 83 was when, as far as I know from interviewing people, there were people who were going to clubs and playing beat machines, and to me that's the key element of house, is those more percussion-driven repetitive tracks, not just like a vocal track that has some electronic elements. So to me that's the turning point, and I would say 82, 83, that's probably when that really started happening.
So you got 82, 83. Okay, we got you on the record for 82, 83. And we're going to see what everyone else has to say here today. Who created house music?
Well, it's a hard question because I think it's also iterative, right? In Chicago, the godfather of house music is Frankie Knuckles, but we had Larry Levin's Paradise Garage putting stuff down. I think the thing about house is that, like, so many of the pioneers and people that I think house is still being created, I think it's a very iterative thing, and everyone has brought a different sound to it. The influence of electronica and, Afrofuturism and even like Latin house, I think it's always evolving.
Got it. Boris.
I know the correct answer.
What is the correct answer?
The correct answer is the people created
Hey.
house.
Or Chicago.
It was a healing sound.
Leave it to old school.
There we
Leave
go.
it to old school.
I would also-
People created it.
And so my second question is, does it matter?
I don't think so.
It's
And
a
that's
tough
not
question.
popular to say in Chicago, because Frankie Knuckles, who I knew personally, Ronnie, who was another DJ back in the day. What was Ronnie's last name?
Ron Hardy.
Ron Hardy. Yeah, Ron Hardy. They were super popular. Michael Izibuku, Tyrone Mix, who was one of the first white house music DJs to get a following. So if you ask people from Chicago, we're definitely saying Chicago. But I believe Frankie Knuckles started his career spinning in New York.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he came to Chicago and honed his craft and really put Chicago on the map as far as house music is concerned.
Yeah.
Got it. And so when you think about what people are doing now as we celebrate hip hop being 50 years, there's a designated date and place and time. You know, how did we come up with, you know, is it 40 years of house? Is it 50 years of house? Given the knowledge that you have about the formation of music, what years would you say were the beginning of house music?
By the time I found out about the warehouse in Chicago, it had been in existence for 3 to 4 years. So I'm going to say mid to late 70s. And I would put a pin in the day that they burned the album.
Disco Demolition.
Disco Demolition.
Yeah.
What year was that? We could look it up.
Yeah, we'll look it up. But it was late 70s.
Late 70s.
So I believe right after that,
Yeah.
people were just kind of over disco music. And some of that disco music that people were over, it got remixed.
It was house. Nation of house. Yeah.
And it became, that's when it became real.
Anna, what you got?
I echo what you said.
Agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, like I said, it's iterative. It was disco, and then the culture rejected disco, but then disco still meant so much to the people who disco was celebrated by, and they found ways to extend it, remix, add to it. I mean, the warehouse in Chicago, baby.
All right. Tell me, Hannah, what are you moderating today?
I am moderating the Queer Roots of House Music and Safe Spaces panel.
Doris, what panel are you on today?
That's the panel that I'm on.
Jay, Cantor? Yes. We have 4 questions. Who created house music?
Frankie Nichols, correct? Chicago house music.
There's not an answer. I don't think there's one answer. But I'd like to know what you think. What you think? Yeah.
I think the biggest impact for sure is Frankie Knuckles, but of course other than Ron Hardy.
Okay. So you can put Larry the Band in the work.
I do because that is. But that's not the bar. Just like I include disco. It's still it's a part of it.
I think I take a more broad approach, as in like queer black and brown created, queer black and brown created house music. Queer black and brown, yes. I say that because some of the biggest influences and biggest DJs at the time, and the folks that told us.
Now, answer me this. Why does it matter?
It matters because so much history is erased and changed, and not a proper representation of the contributions that black and brown queer people specifically have actually made to overall collective liberation. And I think it's about time that they start getting that recognition that they deserve.
It's important. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, same. That recognition needs to be there. Especially for a genre that is the highest grossing, the most, that brings the most folks together, cross racial, cross genders, everything. Everyone loves house music. It's in every language, every type of influence. So yes, the birth of it and the origins definitely need to be there.
And who created house music?
From what I know, I was always taught Frankie Knuckles. You know, starting with the warehouse parties in Chicago and creating a space for, I guess primarily Black, Latino, and LGBTQ community. And that's what I was taught. I wasn't around during that time, but kind of what I've been taught.
So talk to me about what you know about Afro house and Amapiano, all the other genres that have sort of emerged from house music.
Yeah, so where do I start? Okay, so I'm by trade a concert promoter, so I work with a lot of Black artists across multiple genres. So what I know about Amapiano is it kind of originated in the mid-2010s. kind of another, kind of combining multiple genres, a mixture of jazz, house, Afro house, but with a South African twist, adding elements like the log drum and things of that nature. So around 2010 is when the sound kind of really started to emerge in South Africa. And I would say probably over the last 5 years is when you've kind of started to see it kind of boom and kind of make its interest into the States. But I would also arguably say over the last 2 years is when a lot of some of the larger acts have broke into performing in the States. To me, I mean, I'm originally from St. Louis. I went to Columbia College, Chicago, and so I didn't grow up around house. And so for me, when I got to Chicago, it was a new experience for me. Speaking candidly, a lot of my people from, I would say, like a slightly older generation is where I primarily saw house. I saw it very prevalent in places on the South Side, in communities like Bronzeville and other neighborhoods where you can go out and that would be the norm for a Friday night. And I'd never experienced that before. And I would say my entryway into kind of experiencing, and I interned with Ron Trent, just like 2011. And that was the first time I saw these day parties, and it was at the Shrine on Wabash. It was like 21st and Wabash. Yeah. And so I was this kid in college at Columbia. I think the day parties were like 99 cents. I was like, this is crazy. People are dancing during the daytime. What is this? So that was my intro. But what I remember distinctly is it was a place for Black people to just express themselves freely on the dance floor. It was very non-judgmental. I'm a person that doesn't have rhythm, and to see people just kind of just moving freely was very powerful to me. And I see a lot of the same parallels in Amapiano as well.
Got it. Do you think it matters that we ask these questions about who created it and origination? Is that interest? Is it at all something you think is critical that we should interrogate?
I think it's important. I think specifically Black music, a lot of times our legacies, they get lost over time, and so I think it's important to pass along as much as you can. It's an opportunity to educate. For people to understand the roots, understand the history. I myself are still learning of the history as well. So I think it's important, but I also think it's important for, as people kind of understand the genre or the genres, to really kind of find a balance of understanding the roots and the culture, but also figuring out how they want to add to it as an artist.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a great panel discussion today.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Lori Branch asking, who created house music?
So, thank you so much for coming to the Chicago House Music Festival.
Thank you. I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
Well, talk to me. Tell me your full name. Tell me a little bit about the name of your podcast and what the podcast is about. Mm-hmm. And then I'll ask you more questions. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Derek Lott, also known as DJ D Lott. Currently, we stream on Twitch. We've got several raid trains, as they call them now, that really promote the vibe of house and preserving the culture and excitement of the music. Mm-hmm. And we also celebrate that on our virtual talk show, House Culture Conversations.
That is awesome. Mm-hmm. So, who created house music?
Who created house music? That's always, a challenging question, right? Because we know the origin story that, Frankie came out of New York and he brought his style to Chicago. And there's debate about who called it house first. But if you talk to folks back in New York, I had the opportunity to visit with Merlin Bob, and he said, hey, they were mixing stuff and doing things in 72. And we know the late 70s is when it took off here, and we started first calling it labeled house music. So when we talk about the origins, I like to think about, there's two origin stories. There's where the music migrated from that arrived in Chicago, and then there is the actual adoption and creation of what we call house, and where the culture was born. I think the culture is from Chicago.
Got it. Okay, does it matter that we ask these questions?
I think so. I think so, because we'll look back and not really know the evolution or the origin story in and of itself. And that's always important. I mean, me as a black person, I always ask that question, where do I come from? What are my origins? So it's always important to know your history. And that's why I think opportunities like today, this forum are important. I think the work that you do on the Vintage House Show and the Music Archive are incredibly important, because one day we'll look back and ask the question, hey, how did all this happen? And there will be a record. And I think when we spent the time talking, and then you were on the other side of the table, you really opened my eyes to the fact that this is a field of study, that this is important for us. People will, just like jazz or anything else that people study, house music is a field of study. It's a genre that people will want to know. Who was the first person that did house music? Where did it start? Where did it start? So I think it's critically important.
Thanks for listening to the Vintage House Show podcast. Please subscribe and share, and check us out live, WNUR 89.3 FM, Wednesdays at 10 o'clock.